Chapter 9. A Voice Under the Hill. They had never been so close before. The stars filled Skylar's vision from end to end and floated right up to his face. Somehow, he wandered so far into their private heaven that he was buried in them. Stars appeared in front, above, beneath, and behind, and all around him. No matter where he looked, he could not find the ground. Skylar was inside the sky. He couldn't believe his luck. And it hardly mattered that he didn't remember whatever accident had landed him here. It couldn't have been more amazing than what he saw and felt now. Skylar stood at the top of the universe. Even if he lost his balance, he'd only fall into a Magellanic cloud of stardust, throwing glittering grains across the night. Staring across the endless dunes of stars, a new thought delighted him. He could grab one and take it home. What a magnificent present it would make for his mother. No one else in the entire village would have such a treasure, and it would keep his family rich and happy for as long as they lived. The options were never ending, and any of them would do the job. But Skylar searched every corner of his vision, window shopping for the biggest, most beautiful star in creation. And there, off to his right, he found the one, a titan among the heavenly host, the crown of all constellations, blazing with every color ever blown into the molten glass of our universe. Tears welled up in Skylar's eyes. He'd never seen anything beautiful enough to break his heart, but this star shamed him with its perfection. Hungry, he reached to snatch it, which is how he discovered his hands were shackled. What? Skylar thought, suddenly distressed. No, it wasn't just his hands. He couldn't move any part of him. His arms had been welded to his sides. His neck refused to turn, and he couldn't feel his legs. Watching the flawless star slide away to the infinite horizon, he desperately threw his limp body toward it. That sent him spinning. He whirled like a weather vane, always in motion but tethered to one spot. He couldn't slow down. He tried to hold still, but there was nothing to stop him. When he fought it, he only spun faster. The stars streaked past, blurring into long lines racing over his vision as Skylar's spin grew more frantic. He panicked. "Chirping! Help me!" he screamed. "Chirpong!" And the sound of his own words terrified him. What had happened to his voice? It had become tinny and full of static. He barely recognized it as his own. What had those strange chimes been? He couldn't make sense of anything he saw or heard or felt. And he hadn't stopped the spinning. Out of ideas, he threw his head back, hoping to at least fall down. Instead, he somersaulted over himself, again and again, and 100 more times without landing against anything. The sky rolled around him like an enormous crystal sphere. He was trapped in the maelstrom of his own momentum. The wheeling stars sickened his stomach. It felt like he'd been holding his breath for the longest time. He was going to pass out. Skylar crashed awake with a gasp. He sat up from a sweat-soaked bed of uncomfortable straw in total darkness. In a cavern he didn't remember falling asleep inside. He wanted to ask where his real bed was and where all the light had gone. And then Skylar remembered. With despair, he understood the events of yesterday had not been part of the dream he'd just escaped. He really was trapped in a hole under a hill, with no idea why he had to be there. He laid himself down again, defeated. The cloth on his back irritated him. Drenched in Skylar's sweat, it clung to his skin. The stitched diagram of stars pressed itself sharply enough against him that he could have copied the image in detail onto paper. It felt like it was being tattooed onto his hide, which couldn't have been helpful. Such a tattoo would have the constellation reversed, like a reflection. No, a part of him thought. It is meant to be seen this way. The design was already reversed on the cloth, so the skin of his back would see it the correct way. How did he know that? It felt like something he'd been taught, then forgotten long ago. With his heart still racing, Skylar wilted into the straw. It honestly felt like he had fallen out of the sky. There was a soreness all over, and thoughts wouldn't come together cleanly. More than anything, he just wanted to go back to sleep. He closed his eyes again, and a voice muttered in his ear, "Who are you?" Skylar leaped to his feet, electrically awake. In his exhausted state, with his mind frayed like a decaying rope, he could not tell if he had imagined what had sounded like someone speaking to him until it spoke again. "Aren't you going to tell me?" "Stay back," Skylar shouted, throwing his arms out. A long silence passed, and the boy slowly brought his hands down. He said nothing, and nothing happened. Maybe that voice had just been an echo? Much closer now. "Did they give you a name?" Skylar spun, looking for a face in the darkness, but of course he could see nothing. Right in his ear this time. "Did they?" He thrashed his arms in the direction of the sound. They hit nothing. The silence loomed, demanding an answer. Yes, they gave me a name from the book." "Will you tell it to me?" Skylar thought on that. "Sorry, I already forgot it." "The name is Pazuzu," the voice said flatly, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Softly, it asked again, "Will you tell it to me?" And the strangeness of the request was not lost on Skylar. If the voice already knew the name, then why did it have to ask? And again, what harm could come from telling the voice what it already knew? Even so, Skylar answered, "I won't." "That is right," the man said, and it was the voice of a man, floating off like a cloud to the edge of the room. Then instantly in front of Skylar's face, "Keep the name safe, for it is the only thing that can bring you home. What is that thing you're wearing?" Skylar blinked, not that it made a difference in the pitch-black room. "What thing?" "This thing." Out of nowhere, fingers clawed the back of Skylar's shirt, and he bolted, the echoing cavern filled with the sound of his feet pounding stone. Holding out his hands, he quickly met a wall in the dark and threw his back against it. "Do you know what it is?" the man asked, sounding like he was still where Skylar had been. Skylar began. Did he know? "They just put it on me. I'm not sure why." "It, too, has a name." Skylar's eyes bugged as the voice rose up to the top of the dome and bellowed, "It is called the Secret Sky, and it reveals the Pilgrim's Road, the road you must walk if you are ever to regain what you have lost." There was a solemnity to the silence that followed as the room's echo faded into the blackness. "Will you show it to me?" Once again, Skylar was baffled. "No." "That is right," the voice said, drifting downward like snow from the ceiling. "Do not show it to anyone, for it is your only map." "Whoever you are, just go away." "I cannot go away. This is my home. That is my bed." There was a rustling in the straw at the center of the room as if the man had sat down. "Why were you sleeping in it?" "I don't know." "I will ask again," the voice replied testily. "Why are you here?" "I honestly don't know." Skylar raised hands in surrender. "You don't have to make it so hard. Just say that you're here to be tested, or that you're here to sleep, or any reason you can think of. I will accept any answer you give." The voice reappeared right next to Skylar's ear and whispered, "I know you won't lie to me." What was he supposed to say? He was here because his father had forced him to come, because he wasn't allowed to refuse. His family and his village had decided it was time for him to become a man, and there was nothing else to it. "I don't like the reason." "Then pick a different one." "It's not that easy." "You're being boring." The accusation sounded as if filtered through a sneer. Skylar was apparently losing whatever contest this voice thought he was in.
That's the one thing I can't forgive. Where is the boy who fell asleep here tonight? He was angry enough to want something.
Skylar almost protested, but his memory caught up with him. He had gone to sleep angry. He'd formed the words to throw at his parents, to hurt them into giving him what he wanted. That seemed so selfish now. He didn't want to be that boy. "Let me try again," he whispered. The emptiness yielded the floor to him. "I didn't get to decide this," Skylar said, still feeling betrayed. "I'm still mad about it, but I trust Mother and Father, and Torta and Mix, too. I wish I knew why this was so important to them, even if they never bothered to ask if it was important to me." Shaking his head made no difference in the lightless gloom, but he did it anyway. "I came here to find out why I am here. I want to know the whole story." Skylar heard footsteps, actual footsteps, clap across the stone floor toward him.
"That is an excellent answer. Perhaps the best one ever given. And now that you have drunk from my cup and slept beneath my roof and passed all the tests, you are ready to know everything. I will tell you the secret, like I told it to your brother and your father and your grandfather's grandfather's great-grandfather and his 3 great-grandfathers before him. Do not be afraid."
But Skylar was afraid. The footsteps passed dangerously close to him as they followed the curve of the wall. Was he going insane, or could he almost see someone there, staring up at the mural ringing the room?
"It's all been so carefully staged. This valley, its people, their farms and homes. From the outside, you can't tell who they really are. That is by design."
The voice turned towards Skylar.
"But you must not be fooled. It falls to you to remember what is real. And now that you have dreamed among the stars, you are ready to know the truth. You, your family, and everyone in this village are actually..."
He stopped. No joke, he actually stopped here, right before the big explosive reveal. And I would have knocked his teeth out if it had been me in there, getting ready to hear the biggest secret of my life. He'd spent so much time priming Skylar for this moment. He could have been a little more forthcoming. He could have said anything, such as, "Everyone in this village is actually a ghost," or "Every person in this village is actually a swarm of butterflies trapped in a human-shaped balloon," or "Tonight we have a fine selection of seasonal cheeses hand-picked by the chef," or "Spam, everyone is spam," and it would have satisfied me, and Skylar too, most likely. Instead, the man said nothing. He had been interrupted. And before Skylar could raise a question, he heard it too. Thousands of hurried footsteps swarming outside the mound, and a moment later, the crackling of fire, and then screaming. The entire valley rang with it now. Sharp cries got the once calm night frying with the sounds of horror and agony. Some voices asked for help, some begged for mercy, but mostly it was just names. Names being called out amid the fire and confusion. Where was sister? Where was father? Where was baby? Had anyone seen Aunt Hannah, or rough Henry, or insufferable Agnes, or patient Mildred? And again, names were called out, shrieked into the air at the sight of what had happened to them. More legions of footsteps surging across the village. You already know what was happening. I know it too. But Skylar couldn't begin to understand what he was hearing. Was this part of the test? Had everyone in the village come down here to scare him? To make him believe something horrible was happening just outside these walls? He couldn't make sense of it. He didn't know what you know.
"It has already begun," the voice said, sounding heavy. "I need to leave now. I am sorry."
"Where are you going?" Skylar asked.
"I will open the door for you when it is over. You will be safe here."
Wait! Skylar lunged, trying to catch the shadow he thought he'd seen, but it was already gone. He circled the room, pounding the walls, calling for help. It got him nowhere, and his lifetime of powerlessness reached a new low as he fell down onto his bed of straw, out of breath, forced to listen to the world ending all around him.